In the media world, many products are advertised to consumers in misleading ways in order to maximize sales. This is the case for the product of Prevagen, which advertises based on many misleading claims despite a clear lack of scientific evidence. Prevagen is one of the most prominent memory-enhancing supplements on the market, sold on the notion that for most people, aging naturally produces a decline in memory tasks. To combat these memory changes, Prevagen asserts that their product has been clinically shown to help with memory loss associated with aging. Prevagen promises that it improves memory and supports healthy brain function, a sharper mind, and clearer thinking, all thanks to an active ingredient called apoe. Apoe, a jellyfish protein, is advertised as the magical ingredient that helps improve brain function. The first of many issues in Prevagen's advertising has to do with how apoe has no known role in human memory. Most scientists agree that this type of supplement likely gets digested long before ever reaching the brain. To sell their product, Prevagen relies on graphics like this one to convince the consumer that the claims they're making are truthful. The bar graph rises from 5 to 10 to 20% over 90 days in supposed recall tasks, but graphics are not always reality, and these numbers have no further explanation in terms of what they are a reference to or how many people are studied. This is an example of selectively reporting data in an attempt to mislead the public into thinking real memory improvements have resulted from the use of this product. The largest flaws in Prevagen's data are the lack of essential components of a reliable clinical trial. They have unacceptable levels of bias, lack of sufficient participation characterization, don't include limitations, and rely on post hoc analyses for the bulk of their evidence. Bias is an unquestionable factor in the advertisement of Prevagen. Quincy Bioscience is the company that manufactures and sells Prevagen and is also the company that sponsored the product's clinical trial, known as the Madison Memory Study. Even the lead investigator in the clinical trial was a Quincy Bioscience employee. Simma-Ditch's 2013 study asserts that one of the largest forms of bias in research is the funding bias, which occurs due to the prevailing number of studies funded by the same company and supporting the interests of the sponsoring company. Based on the criteria from this study, Prevagen's funding source would likely be declared as a potential conflict of interest, especially since the results have yet to be reproduced by any other unbiased scientific lab or even been published in a peer-reviewed journal. The Madison Memory Study lacks the key research component of participation characterization, as they neglect to include a description of their participants, which may play a big role in the results. The Higgins 2011 study describes how flaws in the reporting of randomized trials can cause an intervention to be under or overestimated. The authors found that randomization trials should ensure that participants in comparison groups are similar with respect to both known and unknown factors. Prevagen studies should have detailed participant characteristics like age, race, education, gender, etc. These factors should have been known and reported in the findings of the research, otherwise their results become less trustworthy and claim that the intervention was the cause of the difference in outcomes. Ian Dice's 2007 study explains the importance of limitations in research, which are essential in establishing validity and credibility. Acknowledging limitations is a basic requirement in understanding the context of a trial, as well as discussing errors or problems discussed in the findings. In the case of Prevagen, they included no limitations in their published research. They should have mentioned various limitations, including bias and conflict of interest, a mention of the lack of comparison of apoe to the placebo, the fact that data from 51 patients was missing in the statistical analysis, and the lack of evidence in apoe reaching the mentioned therapeutic target. So how can a study that found that Prevagen was no more effective than a placebo at improving cognitive skills claim otherwise? If there was no initial statistically significant results, where is Prevagen's data coming from? What Quincy Bioscience did is known as a post hoc analysis. Srinivas and Kaplan's 2013 study explains how post hoc analyses are criticized as judging data after a study has been completed with the hope that further looks will yield something of interest. Though this is relatively common among scientists, it means the results are far from conclusive. The more post hoc analyses that are done, the higher the chances of encountering random events that may appear significant. Quincy Bioscience did over 30 post hoc analyses and called the results statistically significant without actually testing them again. The authors also assert that post hoc analyses are problematic because it is often impossible to discern from published results of post hoc analyses as to how many tests were conducted to arrive at the conclusion. Beyond the faults of the clinical trial, Morrill and Costello suggest that other dietary supplements would be better at facilitating memory maintenance. It has been established that memory consolidation and maintenance depends on calcium channels and calmodulin-dependent kinases. Apoe is a member of the calcium-binding family of proteins that includes calmodulin, which is another calcium-binding protein. However, calmodulin has more calcium-binding sites and more cholesterol-binding domains with a higher interaction affinity for cholesterol. These results suggest that a calmodulin-cholesterol complex may be a better dietary supplement to facilitate memory maintenance, rather than the apoe or cholesterol-free jellyfish protein. So would Prevagen even be the most effective supplement? Ultimately, the Prevagen product takes advantage of the fears of those experiencing age-related memory loss. It is marketed as a memory-enhancing supplement based on results from a clinical trial that lacks several elements of reliable research. Advertisements mislead consumers into thinking they will see drastic improvement, but reality is this probably won't be the case.